I would like to ask you to give us a summary of your own career, maybe what you studied, you know, what you did even before starting to work in sport, how you started working in sports. Tell us a bit about your career until you get where you are now.
Absolutely. So yeah, my journey started back in Mexico. I'm Mexican born and raised. Um, I studied. I did my bachelor in industrial engineering. I used to live in Toluca. That it's a very industrial city, and that was one of the first things that I was thinking. Like my world was just my local community. That's where I was expecting to live my whole life, and I was thinking, okay, how can I succeed in my career? So I decided to study this bachelor, but I always had this interest for marketing initiatives, so in the commercial areas. So that's when I started working in different companies that were more on the retail, that had more branding and marketing initiatives. So I started after I concluded my undergrad studies. I went and worked for a couple of companies involved in the packaging and the retail industry. After that, I decided to join Coca-Cola. I had the opportunity after learning a lot of how the bottling world works. That gave me the understanding in order to transition more into more commercial aspects of the industry. And then I spent about 3 years there working at the Coca-Cola headquarters in Mexico City. But I always had this itch for doing something in sports. So I was always doing marketing and promotions on retail in the convenience stores, the 7-Elevens of the world. I was doing a lot of activations there, but always related to sports. So I'd say like, okay, this is probably the time to explore different horizons, different opportunities, and start digging and searching. I evaluated different programs, different masters, MBAs. The natural probably opportunity will be going to the US because of the geographical proximity. But I decided to do a little bit different and specialize in soccer, in football. That is the sport that I love. I always wanted to be a professional football player. I couldn't make it. I decided to pursue my studies. But then I decided to do an MBA specialized in football by the University of Liverpool. That was the start of my transition into the sports world. I didn't
When
know
was
if
when was that? What year did
this
you graduate?
I graduated back in 2009.
Okay.
So it was a full year program. It started in 2008, and then I concluded by 2009. And during the time that I was finalizing my dissertation, I was already exploring different alternatives in the industry in Europe. My plan always was I'm gonna go study my MBA. If I can get a job in sports, I would like to be in Europe for 1 or 2 years, come back to Mexico, and continue my career in sports there. And I said, if this doesn't work, I still can accomplish my MBA ambition and go back to what I was doing before, right? That was working for Coca-Cola. So that was kind of my thinking process at that time. So when I was working on my dissertation back in 2009, I applied to probably 50 or 60 different employers, from clubs to federations to different organizations. It wasn't an easy. I didn't receive many responses at that point because I didn't have the experience, right? Like I had already some commercial experience. I had like 3 years working on that, but it was a transition into a new industry. So it wasn't easy in the beginning. So I decided to take an opportunity with an internship that with SoccerX. That was my introduction really to the football world, where I learned I need to receive a huge cut in what I was earning at the time. This was not about the money. This was more about how can I get my foot into a different industry and learning really like and starting to create my network, building connections, and just starting to learn and know a little bit more about the industry. So I stayed for about a year and a half at SoccerX. before moving to Sport 5. This was based out of London, so I continue living in the UK after I graduated from the University of Liverpool, and then I transitioned
So
in.
what was the time that you were at SoccerX?
The time that
From when
I
to when?
spent at SoccerX was starting in 2009, when I was working in my dissertation, and then I went all the way to early 2010, like March 2010. It was probably like nine,
Did,
10
did, did you
months.
go? They did an event previous before the World Cup in South Africa. They did a few events down there.
Correct.
Did you go to the one in 2009?
Yes, that was one of the key highlights of my time there. That was an amazing experience. At the time, I was responsible for selling sponsorship deals to some companies, but also attracting delegates and companies out of the Americas. So I was very pleased with the opportunity, because that gave me a lot of connections in that part of the world, especially with the Argentinian ecosystem, because I
Yeah,
had the opportunity to bring like a big group of clubs, companies that were involved in football at the time. So yeah, that
yeah.
was a good time at
I
Soccer.
didn't remember, but it's possible that that's when we probably first met.
Correct. Yeah, those were massive events, those global conventions. But yeah, that was super fun working
Yeah.
at that time at SoccerX. But I
Sorry, I
always
didn't mean to
saw this.
interrupt.
No, it's all good, because at the end of the day, I always saw this as an opportunity just to, again, create a network. I saw it like a springboard, a platform in order to transition into something different, right? So that's when the opportunity to work for Sport 5 came about. That was very, very different, right? Like Sport 5 at the time was a very well established company with global footprint. So it was a great opportunity for me to be involved. With my knowledge of the Americas market, I got the responsibility of sell media rights and start doing some trading of those rights, also organizing games for federations, clubs that wanted to participate or do events in Europe. So it was this connection. So it was acquiring and selling, right? It was part of the two roles that I had at that time working for Sport 5. I stayed with them from 2010 to 2013, so about 3 years that I continue learning, continue meeting people. One of the key opportunities and kind of the one that helped me in my new pathway with MLS was when I went to meet with the president at the time of Major League Soccer, asking to represent their media rights globally. At the moment, they had already a deal, but I already had a connection. I already met this person that later on we're gonna interact a lot and have this nice friendship and collaboration on the professional side of things. So that's 2013 when I received a call from a friend that was leaving his position at Soccer United Marketing and MLS. He was moving into a different industry, moving to the broadcasting world. And he said, like, if you're interested, I can present a recommendation for yourself, and you can start the process from there. So that's something that I took as a great opportunity. I love the idea, because that's something that at that moment in my initial plan that was going back to Mexico, I saw that like a step in that direction, without knowing that I was going to spend too much time in the US and really reside in the US as I'm currently am.